Well, hello everybody. This is Shiva, and this is episode 6. And we're basically designing a table in the future pinball editor. And then we're going to generate a blueprint, and we're going to build the table in Pin Builder. And it's been a little while. I missed a day yesterday. I missed the update, and that's because this table has changed more in this episode than it has in any of the previous episodes. And I do recommend that you watch the previous episodes because it does answer a few questions. And most importantly, I do occasionally scatter some tips and tricks in there too as well that I haven't done a formal video of, which is what I will be doing after I finish this one actually. So, yeah, it looks the same, but it's not. The It's a very simple reason for this was this game is called Star Destroyer in Pin Builder, and it's firepower, okay, but it's called Star Destroyer, and of all of the pack-in Pin Builder games, Star Destroyer happens to be absolutely the worst of the bunch, especially in terms of gameplay. And the reason for it is, and physics. And the reason for that is very simple. Firepower, the actual arcade game, was 20 and a quarter inches wide. That would be the horizontal, left to right, and 42 inches long, which is top to bottom or vertical. Pin Builder is 40 by 20. So you are missing a huge amount of real estate there. Furthermore, with it being missing a quarter of an inch, all of the lanes become a lot more compressed. In other words, a lot closer together. And sometimes the ball has problems even fitting through there. And of course, the design is sort of scrunched up towards the top because of the missing 2 inches. To make matters worse, I had to make some changes to this design because my design was just too compressed. If it was the proper scale, I would have probably been able to have re-added some things that I have had to take out. But unfortunately, this is for Pin Builder, not for future pinball. And besides, I don't really think anybody would be too interested in this table anyway. But you never know. Anyway, also what that came up was about control points on ramps, and well, if you saw my previous tips video, I was showing people about control points that you can snap to millimeter, how handy that is, or snap to the nearest millimeter, as it's called. And you can also move them with the arrow keys. And a lot of people didn't know that. And it's really great for lining up control points on just about every object that uses a primitive, like a surface or a wire or whatever, except for ramps. Because ramps are a little bit different. And there are all sorts of problems with ramps and control points. So what I have done is I said that I would show how I do my ramps, and it is I have two control points. This guy for this ramp, and then this guy for that ramp, and that way I can wiggle them around so I can line up everything. If you see how good I've got my lines. And the end points here, they are actually snapped together, and then I take one of the control points, the one from the bottom here, and I just move it up ever so slightly. So as you can see, this is the ramp for 11, and this is the ramp for 1, and this is the higher one because it worked out a little bit better. You may still get a seam, but the chances of it happening are less likely. The other thing to remember about this is you're still going to have some problems because of the lighting effects and also because of the shader that FP puts on its objects. You may notice that, but it's not so bad. The other thing is to make sure that your draw order, in other words, draw to the front or draw to the back, are set properly on here too as well, because it looks a little weird. I have a screenshot of this I'm going to show you, and I forgot to set my draw orders. Now there's also another little trick here. I have two ramps here. I have one here and I have one here. They are both set to the same start height. They're both set to the same start width. And no matter how much you do it, you're going to see a small seam. And it's really, really annoying. So there is a little trick to fix that one out. So if I have this as drawn to the front, you're going to see a very little seam that comes up here. If this is set to draw to the front, then you're going to see the little seam right along here. So the easiest trick to do is to use a surface to overlay it, like I have. Wrong one, Paul. It was 8 I wanted, I think. Here we go. My surface. And if you look very carefully, you will see my top height is 70.1 millimeters. And some people may not know this, but with walls and surfaces and with the wires, you could actually use a decibel for your height, for your top and bottom heights. You cannot do that with ramps. Ramps is either 70 millimeters or 71 as an example. You can't do anything in between, but you can do that in between with just about all of the other primitives. And what this does is this, in all intents and purposes, overlays over top of those ramps so you don't see the seam. And of course, it's not collidable, so it doesn't interfere. It's just a trick of perspective. So let's show you the table and what I've had to do, and that is everything. This is F2 view. As you can see, this is in Photoshop. And the intention was to rebuild Star Destroyer, but I kind of wanted to do an updated version, sort of like my version of Firepower 2, but with a better looking ramp and placed in the proper place it should have been placed in the first place, which is up here instead of here like the arcade game. And I wanted a little bit of a more modern styling, and I wanted a better shot. And I also wanted an extra lane here so I could, for that third kicker. So that's exactly what I managed to do. But what's happened is I ended up having to redesign a large portion of this table from the previous episode, because I woke up a couple of days ago, I had a look at the table, and I realized that it was just a little bit too compressed. The big problem is Star Destroyer, which is Firepower, is too small in Pin Builder compared to the scale of the arcade game. And it's Pin Builder, you can only do 40 by 20, and Firepower is 42 inches by 20 and a quarter inches. So that's the reason why Star Destroyer really doesn't play very well in Pin Builder. It's actually probably the worst of the games that were released with Pin Builder. So I'm hoping that with the design changes that I will fix that. And the most important thing I have done is I've changed the rip. Yeah, I'm using Photoshop. Oops. But if you can see, if you look at the scale, you will notice that the lanes, for instance, here and here, they're slightly wider than they were before. Over here is a little bit higher because this is going to be compressed a little bit. You can also see this is the blueprint of the original Firepower done in FP. And you can see that there is huge differences in terms of the size because of it. And on top of that, I've had to change all of my lanes. I've had to change those lanes over here. I've had to expand the lanes. And then on top of it, I have had to do it up here, try and free up as much room up here. And most importantly, give me some room for the ball to be able to bounce around in. So this was pretty much a whole scale change of the design, even though it doesn't look like it. The other thing was me just accepting reality and having to make compromises, because if this game does end up being in Pin Builder, there were certain aspects of the design, of the main design at the very least, that it's just not going to be possible. And that was, I had to change my loop. It was to this kicker. It was actually a loop, sort of like Taxi, where it just loops around and goes to a kicker here. But I had to change it over to that because, to be honest, it didn't look great. But most importantly, and the thing that I'm really sad about, is the entire right side I had to make very generic, and that just have the, like, firepower. I had a really, really decent shot for it, and yes, I stole it from Trigon, but that's fine. I'm just stealing from myself then. But it just seemed to fit perfectly with this type of game. Unfortunately, I removed it because what it was doing was it was really affecting the playability in other areas. It was just taking up too much room. To get it to fit, I had to do it in a rather goofy method. It looked awkward as hell, and with me having to expand the entire play field to get as much space for the ball to move around as possible, that was the sacrifice. So yeah, so it's a shame, but that's just the way it is. The other thing here is, as you can see, I've added better VUK kickers. Maybe it's pretty simple technique. I don't know if I even have to do a video on it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people already know how I did it. But if you don't, you can always ask. I'll do one. The other thing was, the only other major change was this curve is a lot more gradual than it was before, and I would still like to make it a little bit better. I have done a video that shows you how I did it. It's actually an incredibly simple way of doing it, and I bet you a lot of people do not know this very simple little trick that has been an FP since the beginning. So I will be doing a video on that. Unfortunately, tomorrow is a long travel day. I'm going off to see my girlfriend, and she's going to be very, very happy to see me, and she'll probably say hello and then promptly hand me a list of all of the things that I have to do for her. So it may be a little while, but I hopefully we'll have my little trick with the ramp, how to restructure a ramp without changing the ramp itself all that much. I'll have a little trick for that, and then hopefully sometime next week I might find some time to work on the game and maybe do 1 or 2 more episodes, and then I guess it's time to try to build this in Pin Builder, which is, I have my doubts, to be honest. It's not going to look anyway as good as this. I'm going to work on the developer to give us better capabilities in Pin Builder. There's virtually no quality of life in terms of using the tools. In fact, it's rather clunky and incredibly over complex and very, very limited in what you can do. But if the developer really wants her program to be better, I think she's going to have to do some of the suggestions that I'm going to give her. And it's stuff that anybody that's used Future Pinball and Visual Pinball, Pinball Creator, some of the other pinball building programs, it's stuff that's already in those. And the reason why is because it works. It's as simple as that. It's fast, it's easy, it's incredibly flexible, very, very powerful, and just way simpler. Pin Builder does things a little awkwardly, and so we're going to have to work on Anna a little bit on some of the things that she's put in, and get her to really strongly consider changing some stuff, because to be honest, there isn't very many people doing tables for Pin Builder. I think there's maybe 2 people that even publicly shown anything in the last couple of months, and that's a very, very telling statement. So by doing a game like this, I can hopefully wave this in front of Anna and says, look, this is what Pin Builder should be doing. And if you like the looks, like this kind of capability, then maybe you should just bite the bullet and do a couple of things here. Anyway, this was a video that was not meant to for me to be bitching about Pin Builder. I'm still optimistic that Pin Builder could be an incredibly useful program, especially for a certain group of people, and that's the niche that Pin Builder will find in this computer space. So we'll see what happens. In the meanwhile, hope you learned a lot from this lesson, and from this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed the previous videos. If you haven't seen them, you might want to if you want more tips and tricks, because I haven't really done videos of a lot of the things that I've probably mentioned in those videos. And I hope to see you for the next one. My name is Shiba, and I'm going to sign off now. So bye for now.